Everyone talks about Bitcoin as the king of crypto, right? But that crown, it's heavy. And a big reason for that is its massive energy bill. It's one of the biggest headaches for the whole industry. But here's the big question. Can this energy-hungry giant actually go green? Let's dig in and find out.
So, is that it? Is Bitcoin just doomed to be this massive energy guzzler forever? Well, the industry is basically in a race against time to prove that's not the case. And honestly, the solutions they're cooking up are pretty fascinating. They're really pointing towards a much, much greener future.
Okay, but first things first. Before we can really get into the cool solutions, we've got to wrap our heads around just how big this problem actually is. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on with Bitcoin's energy habit.
Okay, check this out. To put it in perspective, the entire Bitcoin network, we're talking about a purely digital system, right? It uses about the same amount of electricity every single year as the entire country of the Netherlands. Yeah, let that sink in. That is a staggering amount of power for something that exists in cyberspace.
So you're probably asking, why? Why does it need so much energy? Well, it all comes down to how it keeps itself secure. It's a system called proof of work. And here's the simple version. Imagine super powerful computers all over the world, all competing against each other 24/7, trying to solve this really complex math puzzle. The first one to crack the code gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain, and boom, they get rewarded with brand new Bitcoin. Now, this crazy global race is what makes the network ridiculously secure. But, you guessed it, it's also a colossal energy drain.
But here's the interesting twist. This huge energy problem, it's actually forced a ton of innovation. The mining industry is now, believe it or not, in the middle of a green revolution. So let's take a look at how crypto is actually cleaning up its act.
So, they're tackling this from a few different angles. 4 main ways, really. First, and this is the most obvious one, is just switching to clean power. Hooking up those mining farms directly to solar, hydro, or wind. Simple. Then there's the hardware itself. Companies are designing these new, super efficient mining rigs that get more bang for their buck, energy-wise. On top of that, miners are buying carbon offsets to kind of balance out their footprint. And last but not least, and this one is super clever, they're setting up shop right next to green power plants. Why? To literally soak up any extra energy that would otherwise just be wasted. Pretty smart, right?
And what this all really represents is a huge shift in thinking. We're seeing this clear pivot away from the old way of doing things, just burning fossil fuels with whatever clunky hardware you could find. Now the future is all about prioritizing renewables, squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of the hardware, and aiming for that big goal, being completely carbon neutral. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But it's not just talk. There are real companies out there right now leading the charge. Let's look at a few pioneers who are actually putting these ideas into practice. First up, Blockstream Mining. Now, these guys aren't just plugging into any old renewable source. Nope, they're tapping into the immense and, more importantly, consistent power of hydroelectric dams in North America. This is an absolute game changer when it comes to shrinking their carbon footprint. Then you've got a company like Hive Blockchain, and their strategy is all about location, location, location. They've gone all in on renewables by setting up shop in places like Iceland and Sweden, countries that are just naturally rich in geothermal and hydropower. The result? Their operations run on 100% clean energy.
And it's not always about where you get your power from directly. Take CleanSpark. They're playing a different but just as important part of the game. They invest heavily in carbon offsets. So what does that mean? Basically, they're funding other green projects. Think planting a forest or helping build a new solar farm somewhere else. These projects pull carbon out of the atmosphere, which effectively cancels out the emissions from their own operations.
So why does all of this matter so much? Is it just good PR? Not at all. This is about something much bigger. It's about future-proofing the entire Bitcoin network for all of us. Think about who's watching. You've got big-time investors, and they're now demanding projects that are environmentally responsible. They want that ESG-friendly stamp of approval. Then there are people like you and me, everyday users. We want to be able to use this stuff without feeling that little pang of environmental guilt, And of course, the regulators are paying attention. They're starting to push for low-carbon networks. So, if Bitcoin ever wants to be truly mainstream, it's got to get all 3 of these groups on its side.
So at the end of the day, what's the real takeaway? I think this quote just nails it. Sustainable mining isn't just about saving the planet, it's about future-proofing the entire network.
So what's the final verdict here? Look, Bitcoin's environmental journey is definitely not over. But the progress we're seeing is powerful proof of something really important, that even the most energy-hungry technologies can and do evolve when they're faced with a big enough challenge.
All right, so we've seen how mining is cleaning up its act, but I want to leave you with one last thought to chew on. What if blockchain could do more than just solve its own problems? What if it could flip the script entirely and go from being part of the climate problem to being a major part of the solution? Imagine this technology becoming a powerful weapon in the global fight against climate change. Now, that's a whole other story, but it gives you a glimpse of just how exciting the future of all this could really be.
Hit subscribe and join us tomorrow as we uncover how blockchain is fighting climate change. Don't miss it.